Well. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this evening's episode of Creative Goop. I'm Harry. Gonna move this out of the way. Hopefully, it doesn't generate an echo. Let me know if there is an echo if you're out there. Um, Again, this is Creative Goo. We talk about all things creative around tabletop gaming and everything like that. So we have a lot of fun. Sponsored by Gooey Cube. This is the Gooey Cube Twitch channel. You can catch the Gooey Cube Good Morning Zayate on Saturday mornings. Check out the schedule. Hey, Gouda. And hello, Gothic Dork. Nice to see you. If anybody else, love to say hello. This is interactive, so I'm very much monitoring the stream chat to make sure I catch any questions you might have. Today's going to be a little bit different. I'm not going to be showing ZBrush. I feel like I've done a lot of ZBrush lately. I'm actually going to be talking about burnout. When you're a creative person. And like I said, we're talking about all things creative around gaming, which usually involves writing, art, illustration, painting, miniatures, scenery, sculpting, 3D printing. I mean, there's just tons of stuff that our creative people do. And then there's a bunch of adjacent hobbies that a lot of people have and have shared on this channel and in other places. And I like to encourage all of those things. I think creativity is a big part of us as humans, but we can get burned out. And I did want to talk a little bit about that today, and I can certainly answer questions people have. So one of the causes of burnout, of course, is just losing your creative spark, your creative juices. It's usually because of something else that's going on in your life or whatever. So in my case, like many of you, I'm a knowledge worker. So my brain is how I earn my living. And so if work is stressful, work is doing a lot of things, and I'm having to use my creative energy for work, it means I have very little creative energy once I leave work. And that certainly generates a lot of burnout. And so that's just my story and how it works for me, and some suggestions I've gotten over the years. I was going to talk a little bit about my history with gaming, and then I realized it would be just talking about myself and not about the topic at hand. So I have that information if you're interested in my pedigree, but let me talk a little bit about what I've learned. So when I was trying to be a writer, and what you tell people that write is you are a writer if you write. So I haven't written in anything meaningful in years, including adventures. And so I don't consider myself a writer because I'm not writing. But one of the suggestions we would get is to write every day and write something. And in fact, one of my coaches would say, just write the same sentence over and over again if that's what it took to get your hand on a piece of paper or your fingers on a keyboard, depending on how you write, and just go until other words start coming, other things start happening in your creativity. The other is to just do a description or a dialogue, right? So you just pick something to write about. Maybe you describe your cat, or maybe you would describe what you see out the window if you're going to write a description. And the other one is have that conversation with the cat and write about the conversation with the cat. Anything you can do or say to generate some kind of creative spark, and even if it's just the practice of writing. And we take that into the painting and drawing and sculpting. It's the same advice, actually. So if you have a sketch pad with you wherever you go, you can draw anywhere. And so the best thing to do is sit down and just pick an object in your field of view and draw it. If you're a sculptor, obviously you need your sculpting tools, but it's the same exercise. Pick something you can see and sculpt it. And, just go on and on. Now, if it's another medium, you'd have to do something similar. If you don't have access to those things and you have a phone in your pocket, the other thing to do is take pictures and then think of how you would draw or sculpt or describe that from your photos. The other wonderful thing about taking your own photos, you have the rights to that photograph. So if you use it for an illustration, if you overpaint it and turn it into a piece of art, if you incorporate it into a design, you have permission to do that because it's your photograph. And because of AI, because of a lot of plagiarism, for want of a better word, there's a lot of people that appreciate if you're using your own photographs. So instead of grabbing stock art, you just have a collection of art. Whenever I travel, I try and take some pictures of buildings, of art that I see, of things that I could incorporate. So if I'm in San Diego, for example, what trees don't I have locally? What buildings don't I have? Or even just a facade that I could take pictures of. So I can just search my own photos. And so that can also generate creative spark. The other thing you can do is just do something physical, walk, or whatever your workout happens to be. Those are all great ways to free your mind and let it do other things. Yoga is obviously very, very powerful. The other thing I suggest, because of this channel and my personal passions, is to actually game. So get a D&D game going, get whatever your rule system is going. If you can't find a role-playing game to play online or otherwise, do a board game, do something like a card game. Just get gaming, and then just talking about gaming, it reinforces what your passion is, and you come up with ideas. In fact, gaming often generates, for me personally, hey, Blood Mist, if when I'm playing in a game, I generate a lot of ideas for creatures I could sculpt, for stories I could tell, for the next adventure we might play. So a lot of my creativity comes through play, or a character that's at the table, a player describes their character in a cool way, and we think of a way to incorporate that into art or into a digital sculpt that we could print out and paint later. So those are all really good things to do if you are struggling and having some burnout issues. The other thing about creativity is you can do something creative adjacent. So I've been painting miniatures for a very long time. And so I find the process of painting, hey, Belinda, the process of painting miniatures isn't a creative activity for me, but it's a ton of fun because you're bringing that miniature to life. For me, the creation of that miniature is the creative part. And so painting it is more, what do you see the colors being, and then you paint it. It's a technical experience, but I'm in the zone, and I'm enjoying what comes out of that painting exercise. So painting can be a way for me to handle burnout because I'm doing a task I like to do. I'm putting paint on a model, and I'm seeing that miniature come to life. The other example would be reading an adventure or reading a book. Obviously, I go back and read the same books a lot, and so those bring back the emotions of when I first read it and the ideas it generated. And so reading is a really good one for me. And the other idea I have is, if you do create adventures or you do things for D&D, maybe even just create characters, the act of the mechanics is not particularly creative either. So I've been translating some of the world of Zayate to a game system called Savage Worlds. Well, that's not creative per se, but that the activity needs to happen, and the mechanics of doing that, is something that can help you, break out of the funk, as it were, to get into other things. So those are my burnout suggestions. And while I'm thinking of other things to cover and not getting questions, I'm going to show you guys some photos of prints from the Kickstarter. So remember, we only have a couple of days left for the Gooey Cubes Tomb of Geisengax Kickstarter, and STL files are part of that project. So if you've backed it, you're going to get some STL files. Well, I have to print them to make sure they work, and so I have some to show. I may have shown a couple of these online, but let me pull up this first one. So I'm going to move it to another monitor. All right. So let me maximize that. And so this is the Ghost of Gysingax printed in a green translucent resin. I talked about this the other day. So when you're 3D printing, you can pick different materials. In one of my printers, I focus on the green translucent. Most of you know I hate technology. And so messing around with the statistics and the data around 3D printing and dialing in your settings for the different kinds of resin, that's mind-numbingly painful for me personally. So once I get it working, I stick with it. So I have a small printer called an Epax X1, and it just does translucent green prints. I struggled with everything else. I got that dialed in. And these are the add-ons that are going to be part of the Kickstarter. Once the Kickstarter is complete, we'll work out a way to get them to everybody. So they're just going to be STL files, and we're not currently printing them. We can help you find services that do print STL files. That's what we're recommending, is to have them printed somewhere near you versus shipping them across country. One of the challenges with 3D printing in resin is the resins I use are basic resins, and so they can get brittle over time, including during shipping. And so we've had a lot of problems having them arrive safely and not have to reprint them and ship them again, reprint them and shipping them again. Where if you print them locally, you don't have to worry about shipping. There are several services that do blends of resins to create a more flexible resin that will survive shipping. And I'm not a chemist. I don't want to play with the resin to figure out that mix. There are plenty of hobbyists that do that. And so I focus on this, which is a water washable resin. The other resin that I use, let me show you another picture. Let's see. This is another one that is an STL file that's part of the Kickstarter. And this is printed in a water washable gray resin. And it is somewhat durable. So, I mean, the green resin is somewhat durable. So the way many of these miniatures print, you don't have to worry about the fragility of it. But some of them, like if there's a sword blade or a bow, I have a miniature of a druid with butterflies. The butterflies rarely survive the shipping, and it's a wonderful miniature, and we've actually sold several of them, but they struggle with shipping. But this is the dice throne, and so I showed this is a gooey cube die in the picture, and let me show you what it looks like when the die is on the throne. So when you're rewarding your die for rolling well, you can just sit it on the throne and it can lord over the rest of the dice. So really excited about that. Another look. And then let me find, actually, I'm going to show you another picture. Here it is. That same gray resin I painted so you can see the green goo dripping off the chair. And I had some fun painting it, splashed it around and everything. So this dice throne is now, like I said, you can print it in a opaque resin and then paint it and get a really nice result, or print it in that same green resin so it looks like a gooey cube. And again, it fits a standard die very, very well. The other thing that I did that I'm only showing you, so keep it secret, keep it safe, and that is another, it might make a stretch goal, it might not. Let me find it. I'm going to show you a render first. So this is the render, and you're like, okay, that doesn't look very interesting. Then I rendered it where it looks kind of like a gel, and that's not very interesting. And so I printed it, and it turned out pretty darn cool. And here it is printed, and it's a dice jail. So it's a gooey cube that you can put over, to punish your dice and see if the cube will melt it. So I printed it out, and here it is with the gooey cube die. So you can actually set this over the top of the die to punish it. So I don't know if this will make one of the stretch goals or not, but if not, we'll put it online for people to buy on my mini factory in my store if you want to get it. But it was a lot of fun to print. I actually don't have it with me in the room in my studio. It's upstairs in the game room because I showed my friends when they were here last weekend, and they used it a couple of times to punish some dice. So we now have at our fingertips a gooey cube dice jail. We may think about for some of these, like the dice jail and the dice throne, having them available at conventions for people to buy physically, because it's an easy place to buy and take home. Trying to have the entire library of gooey cube miniatures is difficult. There are over 200 miniatures for gooey cube that I've done over the last couple of years. So it's kind of hard to have that inventory at an event. But things like this that are going to capture the imagination of people, even if they don't play in the world of Zayate, that might be doable. I'll have to talk to the gang about that. So that's the dice jail. And what else can I show you? Oh, we had a new character show up, and I printed him out. This is Zombie Gerald, and he's printed out. I haven't had a chance to paint him yet, but he printed out really nice, very much a zombie. And like I said, people like to see it printed. Here's another one I know people were interested in. This is the bust of Gerald, and it printed out really nicely. It's about the size of smaller than a deck of cards. I should have had it with me, but anyway, it prints out a nice size. I'll take some pictures of it after I paint it with some other things for reference, so you get a feel for how big it is. But it's for the painters in the group that just love to paint, and so you can have something you can put on your wall as a tribute to the 50th anniversary of Dungeons and Dragons, this tribute to Gary Gygax, one of the co-founders, and of course Gerald Gysingax, the whole source of the adventure of the Tomb of Gysingax. So the bust turned out pretty good. There's another character that was added to the Kickstarter, and it's this pup. His name's Grogu. He's the family of the Gysingax family. He's part of the family. And so he prints out really nice too. I haven't had a chance to paint these either, but they printed out really nice. Here's one. Somebody suggested the other day that there's a version with the helmet. So there's now a version with the helmet. He turned out pretty good too. And he's available. He'll be available in multiple sizes. So let me bring this guy up. So this is my reference miniature. He's a regular 32 millimeter miniature. And here's one size. And he's really big. He came out bigger than I was expecting. So I did a new size, and this is bigger than the actual dog in comparison to a person. But that's a nice size for printing and painting. And so he's just a big dog. And then I print him in his regular size. So you can print him any of the three sizes and with or without the helmet. So I'm sure people will love that particular miniature. Let's see what else I can showcase here. And if anybody has any questions, let me know. Let's see. I'm going to show, do I have them printed? Yeah, I'll just show the printed version of this character. He's not yet seen in any of the stretch goals yet. So you can see he's got a sword at his hip. He's got like an armor piece around his neck, and he's carrying and holding a bunch of vials. And now you can see the vials on this side. So the details come out really well in the print. Sorry about the light reflection. The resins, sometimes has a bit of a shine on it. And then I got to have a lot of light when something's that small for the photo to work. And then on his back, he's got a harp. He's a bard, and he was originally inspired by somebody famous in the world of gaming, much like Geralt. This is a character called Rirandral. I don't know how to pronounce it. Rirandral, I think, and a bard walking the world of Zayate. But I thought him being a harper would be very appropriate based on the person this is loosely based on. Let's see what else I can show. Yes, but do I have a picture of him? I do. So I think I've showed this. This is Gerald printed in the resin. This is the ghost of Gerald Geisengax. And then here he is painted. He was printed in that gray resin. I primed him and used a wash, like a contrast paint that was a little bit teal and very ghostly. And so that works out really well. So depending on the material you use to print. And then here's Gerald. His glasses print really well. It's one of the things I showcased the other day. But here's a full Gerald, and this is him in life. And so you have a version that we're hoping to make available depending on stretch goals. If not, we'll make it, another way to get it. But, so you can paint him up and put him with the Geisengax family. There's the zombie again. And I think I have another zombie. And then here's the other guy. So I'm calling it a demi-lich. I think we're calling it the Gerald's Nemesis. And so it's a skull with the glasses and a beard and that skull cap that all the Geralds have. And he's got the same medallion around his neck and the same belt that says EGG, but it's just a spine with a skull. And I've got them all printed. I just have to make time to paint them. I've been very, very busy with the sculpting for this Kickstarter that I haven't had a chance to paint most of these miniatures. I did get to paint the Geisengax family, Lucas and Bushira and the three kids. But that's about all I've gotten done. Oh, and the throne, which wasn't particularly difficult to paint. Let me give you guys a preview of one other character. This is not for the Kickstarter, and this is one of the things that I think goes back to the burnout discussion. So when you're working commissions and working on other people's projects, it can be challenging to stay focused and get it done. And that's why the people I know in the industry, not in the gaming industry, but actually in art and illustration for books and stuff, they call themselves illustrators, not artists, the illustrators that I know. Because an artist gets to pick their own work and then try and sell it. An illustrator is doing somebody else's project, someone else's art direction, someone else's design, and then they just make it come to life. Very much like video games or movies, except for the producer and the writer, everybody else is just creating what somebody else has suggested. And an artist basically creates their own. And that's why there's indie films, because it's someone's dream. And because I have my own, income coming from my day job, I get to pick and choose the projects that I work on. So burnout's a lot harder to achieve. I can actually do whatever I want. I can take a break. I can sculpt and do what I want. And one of the nice things about the world of Zayate and my relationship with Gooey Cube is I only sculpt what I feel like sculpting. And so I've done a lot of the characters that are people that have had their characters illustrated for the world of Zayate, and I've taken those illustrations that inspired me and made miniatures and sculptures. And the same with the monsters. The monsters that inspire me are the ones I create. I rarely do commissions. So this 50th anniversary of D&D, this Tomb of Geisengax adventure was too good to pass up. So I certainly took these commissions and worked very hard to make it exactly what Luke and our friend Delphinius wanted. And so that, a lot of direction in this particular project. And let me stop showing you this miniature and come back to myself. So, but it reminded me why commissions is not my thing. Now, if I needed to make a living with my art, your only choice is commissions, in my opinion, for this kind of stuff. People wouldn't look at my miniatures and consider them art. I'm a technician, even, because I'm making representational things from illustrations or from ideas. It's derivative of most fantasy. And while I do a lot of things that I don't think other people have done, that doesn't make me original and doesn't make my art speak to the people. And so selling this as art would be hard. So I'm selling miniatures that people can print themselves. I'm creating stuff that I think is fun. So commissions would be one way for me to make a living. And all of those people that are having to make a living with this, I salute you, because again, you're making cool stuff, but it's someone else's cool stuff, where I get to make the cool stuff I want to make. And but again, it reminded me that commissions isn't my passion. It's not what I want to do. I want to make whatever I want to make and do it on my terms. And so I'm going to go back to not doing commissions. I had that conversation with a lot of artists, a lot of people that are looking for me to do sculpting for them. I just don't do commissions, not very frequently. There's a lot going on right now, and I know a lot of you are also dealing with a lot right now. And my Twitch stream, we're going to put on pause. I mentioned this in my Facebook post, but it's just too much for me to do and prepare this stream every week and have something interesting and useful for all of you, and for me to do everything else that I need to do and want to do. So streaming isn't, I started the stream before I got this full-time gig, and it was something fun to do to tide me over, and it was interesting and at first, but the technology had defeated me last week. I had lots of technical issues that I have been unable to solve. We're doing really well today, which is awesome, but I can't have something that unpredictable in my life. It's just too stressful for me personally. And so tonight's my last live broadcast for a while. I might be a guest on something else, or we might do a guest episode of Creative Goo. I may do YouTube videos. I'm still not convinced that the technology is going to take care of me for that either. I want to get back to creating and sculpting and doing those fun things. So if there's enough interest in YouTube videos or other content, happy to talk to people about it. But I'm not going to be a streamer anymore. It's just, I guess I'm not cut out for it. I just have too many problems. When I touch the technology, it often breaks. I invested, in my opinion, too much money on this whole setup, and it's still not reliable. And so anyway, enough about me. Are there any questions I can answer from those of you still watching? Well, thanks for the vote of confidence. I appreciate that. You guys are always too kind. And I am still a creator. I still do great stuff. I just need to find a way to share and teach and everything, but without this technology hurdle. I don't know if it's Twitch. I don't know if it's the tool I'm using. Like I said, I have a very expensive setup here, and I locked up twice last week. My microphone echoes. The list just goes on and on and on. And this should be about creativity and about maps and drawing and painting and sculpting, 3D printing, all of the cool stuff we want to be doing, not about making my microphone work. So I don't want to be a downer. Again, I was talking about how to get through burnout, and all of those techniques work. everything that you can do to recharge your batteries. One of the things that I believe in is that our spirit is like a vessel, right? And you can think of it as a battery or think of it as a vessel. Vessel works for the rest of the story here. And so you can fill it and you can empty it, and you can do that yourself. And you can also fill it and empty others, and you can fill others. And there was a gentleman I got the pleasure of meeting and talking to, listening to mostly. His name's Charlie Plum. He was a flyer in the military in the United States, and his plane went down across enemy lines in Vietnam. And he was captured and put in a POW camp. And so he went, once he was released years later, with some other people that names you might know. But he went on the road to talk to people. He was a speaker. And one of the things he talked about, I mean, he would have all these sayings and these stories. And one of the stories was, one of his sayings was, you can be a fountain or you can be a drain. And I love that because it's part of that same vessel you are, your spirit. And are you draining the energy from other people? Are you pulling, you're pulling out of their spirit to fill yourself, or are you filling their spirit? And I find creativity and art and sculpting spirit filling for myself. But one of the reasons I did this Twitch stream and YouTube videos and classes I've done at conventions and at libraries and at game stores is to fill other people's vessels. And I encourage all of you to do that. Whenever you're interacting with people, you fill their spirit. You don't drain it. You don't tear people down. You don't do anything that's going to negatively impact their spirit. It's just not the way to live your life. And so Harry, as a philosophy, that's what I do. I want to fill your spirit. I want to fill your vessel. I want to recharge your batteries. And gaming does that for me. And I work really hard at the table when I'm a player, when I'm the game master, to give everybody energy at the end, even if I'm tired, even if that's hard for me and I go back to the hotel room and I'm just completely exhausted. I spent my time filling and recharging your batteries. And I hope this has been that for all of you. And I agree, Belinda. Sometimes it's what we give to others that inspires us, but it's a great way to leave a mark and to make the world a better place. We won't be able to interact with everybody all the time. So those interactions should be positive. You should leave every interaction positive. You should do that. And so I'm never that guy. If you are a convention goer and a gamer, you know what I mean? That is the opposite of what we want. And I certainly live that way. And I encourage all of you to live that way. And it provides you that spark to maybe go back and do some art. So I was gaming last weekend. Somebody was talking about their character and how they couldn't find it anywhere in any store, that they went to Hero Forge and Eldritch Foundry and just couldn't make their character the way they wanted. And I said, well, let's describe the character again. I had been focusing on what they do in the game, not necessarily what they look like. And so she was describing the character. I'm like, that'd be a fun project. So let me sculpt that. So I did some roughs this week and was having fun and having a good time. I gave her a couple of different options, and I'm going to sculpt her character and we'll print it out. And we're going to do a painting night as a group. Instead of gaming one weekend, we're going to paint, and we'll get her miniature all painted up for the table. And, that felt really good. So that's what I want to go back and do. There's some of you that watch my stream that have been at my table, and I sometimes do that. I'll make the character that the player has so that they see their character every day at the table, and they have a unique miniature miniature associated with that character, and it's one of a kind. Now, of course, with 3D sculpting and the ability to 3D print, you can make multiple copies of that unique miniature, but you don't have to. And there are plenty of miniatures in my collection that are one of a kind that I've sculpted or that other people I know have sculpted and made available. So that's going to be fun to get back to that and do those kinds of things. I just need to buy myself some time, as well as when I'm doing something, it's providing energy and giving people something to be excited about. So anything else you'd like me to chat about, or we'll probably end the stream early today? Well, we started with 7 people. We're down to 3. I think I've been a bummer for people, and I apologize for that. I don't mean to be that. Um, and But I'm still around. I still interact on Facebook. I'm going to interact a little more on Discord. If there's a Discord channel you're interested in, let me know on Facebook, and we'll see. Maybe I'll join. And maybe there's a way to use that medium instead of Twitch for live conversations, and I'd certainly consider that. Anyway, with that, I'm going to call this an episode, and everybody have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, and be well.